Hey, freshman English. It's Mrs. E here. Notice my hair is all intact. I hope you caught that was an April Fool's joke yesterday. I wanted to give you a little bit of background on the assignment you're going to be working on for today. So for today, you have two articles on Ethan Couch. Sometimes I call him Ethan Crouch. I apologize. I don't know why I think his last name's Crouch, but it's Couch, like the thing you sit on. These articles today are editorials, which means they are opinions. Okay. So you have to understand that they are opinion pieces. People are writing with a certain bias or perspective that they definitely want to convince the reader of. So you should be aware of that. I am not requiring you to annotate these articles as you read them, but just notice there's perspective 1, and then starting here is perspective 2. So the first thing you'll do is you'll read these articles. It might be helpful for you to make some comments as you go because it'll help the next part go easier. And in fact, usually in class, we will preview these statements with you ahead of time. So this is the thing you're going to have to fill out. So actually, you might read this first because then when you go to read the articles, you can read with a little bit more of a purpose. So these forms are called reading for meaning statements, and they're a way for us to check your comprehension of a specific content in the articles. And you will see this type of assignment continue as we go through informational text. So I wanted to give you a little explanation this first round. So I kind of explained in the directions verbally. You can reread that. The other thing is we're still using MLA citations to show where our information came from. When we did like of Mice and Men, we used the author's last name, Steinbeck, and the page number. Now these are articles, so a lot of them are retrieved from online. So for the most part, you won't have page numbers, and you'll use the author last name. Okay. In perspective 1, actually, there is no author. It was written by the editorial board. So I just showed you like this is what will appear in the citation. But remember all the little things like the period goes at the end of the parentheses. All those little things are things that we're going to still expect you to do correctly. Okay. And so I gave you an example of what a quote with a citation would look like here. So reference this. Remember, quotes come here, then the parentheses for the citation, and then period at the end. So use that as a guide to double check your work. And then I made a little note too here about perspective 1 since there was no author. And even if you go back down to perspective 2, I highlighted the author's name here for you to give you a little hint. So Molly Roberts. So in this case, Roberts would go into the citation because that is her last name. Okay. When you are filling these out, you have a statement. So in some of these this one goes with perspective 1. And then if it says perspective 2, that goes with that specific article. So make sure you're paying attention to that because they're two very different ideas on this Ethan Couch case. So the first statement says, Ethan Couch's parents are irresponsible parents who failed to hold Ethan accountable for his actions. You're going to decide whether the author, not you, this is not asking for your personal opinion. It's what the text says. Does the author of the article agree with that? Then you can either bold this yes or highlight it yes or underline it just so that I can see what the perspective is or no. And the biggest point, I cannot emphasize this enough. This is not your personal opinion. This is what the text is saying because that is a very important skill. You can't just rattle off your opinions in this particular format. There will be a time and a place for that, but we want you to understand what a text or an author is saying and be able to glean that out of the text. Then perspective number 2, same thing. Ethan Couch too easily became a symbol for all that is wrong with American society. After reading that article, you'll think, what does the author of the article think? Do they, yes, agree with that statement? Or no, they would disagree with that statement. So these are essentially like true, false questions for the statement according to what the author would say. Once again, the author, not you. Okay, so yes, the author would agree with this statement, or no, the author would disagree with that statement, given the text. And then what you're putting here is your evidence is a direct quotation from the article. Sometimes if you're disproving something, like if your answer is no, if you can't, like you still need to pull a direct quote, but you might have to say like this quote shows, against what the author says. My other warning to you that I've seen happen in the past is sometimes students will take a quote sort of out of context. So they take one small piece, which actually is part of a broader argument. So make sure you're pulling the best quote. That's why I'm not having you just do do many. I'm having you do one so you can pull the best single quote. If you pull a quote and you're misreading it, that shows a misread. So you're going to get that wrong. So you want to make sure you're looking at the article as a whole and then come back to this so that you can choose the best types of evidence. So in each one of these boxes, you're going to have a quote with a correct citation. Then you're going to come down here and write a claim. The claim is a claim you can make after reading the articles, and you can choose to take that from perspective 1, from perspective 2, or a combination of the perspectives. It's like if you were writing a paper, this would be your thesis statement. So I want you to get very good at reading a lot of ideas and then narrowing it down to one single statement. And I have this checklist for you so you can tell, like, it has to put forth an argument. It has to be something that people could actually argue about. So Ethan Couch is entitled and deserves to be punished, or Ethan Couch, is unfairly did something wrong, but he doesn't symbolize everything that's wrong with American society. So you're taking an idea essentially from one of the articles and writing an argument. Once again, it can come from either perspective or sort of combine the two together. It's essentially a claim that you believe, but you're not going to say I or you. So if you have that in there, make sure you rewrite it and take it out. It should have a strong active verb, believes, states, confirms, something like that. If you're struggling, just Google strong active verbs. Okay, just go ahead and throw that into a Google search, and there's tons and tons of lists of them. Is supported by evidence from the articles, so it has to be grounded in your reading for today. It just can't be some side off tangential idea. And since it's one sentence, make sure it's flawless in terms of punctuation, capitalization, and grammar. Read it through out loud. Say it out loud a couple of times to yourself. We're asking for one really good sentence, okay? And that alone is 10 points. And I grade it just right from this checklist. So make sure you go through and check all of those. And then your reasons is a paragraph of at least 200 words, just kind of reacting to what you read in the article. So in this case, I will allow you to use I because you're writing a reaction, but you're basically stating why you believe that claim. You can use direct quotation in this if you want to, but it should be combined with your own ideas. I'm not giving you a specific paragraph format at this point to write, but I do want you to at least get 200 words. Control-Shift-C is how you check your word count. And if you want a word count as the little music came on there. If you want to check your word count as you go, the way that you can do that is if you go to Tools, and then you go to word count. This is also how you can check your word count. At the bottom of here, it says display word count while typing. And if you choose that option as you're typing, the only thing is it has it for the whole document. So I would have to go from 386 to 586 because it's counting all of the words in this document already. And you need 200 words for your response. But then as you type, it'll track the words over here too. So that's a handy little tip for you in terms of keeping track of your word count. Okay. So once again, just to review, you're reading this article. You do not need to do 10 annotations on this, but it might be helpful for you to look at this first, what I'm asking you to respond to, and then read with that perspective, because then as you go, you can be like, hey, quote for number 1 or what have you. And then your assignment that is graded is this reading for meaning statement, in which you are looking at whether the author agrees or disagrees with these statements, putting a direct quotation to prove it with a correctly formatted MLA citation, writing one claim, and then just sort of unpacking your reasons why you believe that particular claim. Okay. If you have questions on this as you go, just send me an email and I will try to give you some support in that way. Okay. Good luck. Happy Friday. I hope you guys have a great weekend. You're able to get out and enjoy the weather. And we'll touch base with you next week.